Welcome, everyone, to another episode of In the Eye of the Hurricane, presented by Coastline Contractors. I'm your host, Chad Choate, alongside head football coach, Manatee Hurricanes, Jacquez Green. Coach, thank you for joining us, and we're live on TV again this week. I'm going to try to change it up a little bit, get some new vibes going. So we're going to talk everything Manatee Hurricane football, last week's game against Riverview Rams, and then we'll look on to this week's game against the Palmetto Tigers. So, Coach, let's jump into last week. Tough loss against the Riverview Rams. Homecoming, a lot of festivities going on. You know, there's always those distractions you kind of worry about in a game. Close game, 21-14. Really a tale of two halves. You know, got down too far really in the first half to kind of come back there in that second half. Tell me what your staff thought as you guys were breaking down the film last week. You know, what was the outcome from the game?
Well, it felt worse than it actually was once we watched the film. No, we had opportunities to score the football. We had opportunities to make plays down the stretch. I thought the thing that hurt us was situational football. We didn't take advantage of the first drive when we got down there inside the 5. Terrible punt, which gave the ball back to those guys at like their 10-yard line. And we just didn't make plays on 3rd and 4th down around midfield. So we got to make plays on 3rd and 4th down. And also with myself, you know, as offense coordinator also, I think I got to call a better game. I thought I got away from the run too early, you know, last week, and then made us more one-dimensional. We just started throwing the football. So I think we got to stick with the run a little bit more this week against Palmetto and give our offensive line a better chance up front.
Well, so let's talk a little about the beginning. You know, we start out on fire. You know, defense makes a stop. We get the ball right around 50-yard line, 49-yard line, I think. Really good balanced drive, 5 runs, four runs maybe, 5 passes, and a really good drive leading us down to inside the goal line. And I think we've had some issues scoring really from in the 5, and some of that is you know, running the ball and being physical up front. I thought the play call was there, and we've talked about this before in weeks past, and we saw it in Andrew's first 3 to 4 throws in the game. He tends to throw high and start high, and then as he gets more comfortable in the game, starts throwing low or normal. And I thought that's kind of what happened that first drive. He had some several high passes, and then obviously the pick at the goal line there, you know, just too high for Cade, and happens to be a DB there behind him. I mean, The DB didn't make a play on the ball. It just happened to be that's where he was as I think it was Bond was finishing his route. But again, I thought we started faster from a standpoint of the drive, just didn't capitalize. I think that's what you're talking about, finishing those things and capitalizing.
We those guys were 0-3 their last 3 games, so I thought if we scored right then, those guys would start to doubt themselves again. Andrew can't, you know, miss down that area. He had BJ coming open in the back of the end zone. Andrew has been lights out all season. You know, he's over a 60% completion guy, but I don't think this was one of his better games last week. But he's the type of guy that I know he'll bounce back the next game and play even better. And we got to do a better job of supporting Andrew and playing a lot better around Andrew.
And, you know, I think that the defense, from a defensive standpoint, not our best first half, but then we come out in the second half and it played really lights out and played really well from a defensive standpoint. Huge goal line stand that's kind of tough from an offensive standpoint. What's your thought? There's not a lot of on play cards, and when you guys are preparing, there's not a whole lot of plays where, hey, we're going to be at the half-yard line, you know, of our own negative half-yard line. So was your thought just let's get it out of there, punt the ball? We were lucky to have it stop there, have our defense go.
I was thinking, you know, we try to get a few yards to be able to run our offense. No, I didn't want to hand the ball off deep in the end zone. I thought once we got out a little bit, we can at least punt the ball into midfield and make those guys have to drive. But we shanked the punt, gave those guys the ball right back on the 10 or 15-yard line, very close. And so that's tough on the defense. You know, they had just came up with a big stop in that area. So just tough on those guys to be able to make a stop like that again. So when we met this Sunday, me and the staff, you know, went over that situation again. What type of things we'll try to do down there. Will we try to just get into our regular offense and run some plays down there? Or will we just try to get up on the center again and try to, you know, sneak the ball out and get some yards? So
then talk a little more about, you know, the second half. I thought, you know, you mentioned a little bit of play calling stuff. I thought we really opened up in the second half, doing some stuff that was nice. A lot of orbit, or I don't know if you guys call it orbit in motion, coming around the backside of the quarterback and the running back, getting Bond the ball in space a lot. Bond Beam did a really great job. What was it just from halftime, the adjustment? Was it just because, hey, we're down and we need to score, let's open up a little bit more? or was it, hey, this was part of the game plan, we had this in the repertoire, let's use it? What was the thought process going in and maybe open up a little more?
It was a combination of both. We only had 2 real drives in the first half. We had one where we went down and turned the ball over, and we had another one toward the end of the half because the second one was backed up. So we really never had the ball. We really never got into a rhythm and never really got into the offense much. So we really got.
We were probably under 20 plays.
Yeah, we were.
The first
when
half.
I counted it, we were. Yeah. So we really got into our offense more in the second half, and we started moving the ball. The only thing I really regret about it is I thought we threw it too much. I thought we still should have went with some more RPOs and mixed in the run pass to keep those guys honest because. When we didn't keep them honest, they started, bringing pressures because they knew we was passing the ball and getting after Andrew a little bit.
Obviously, sometimes the score dictates what you've got to do from an offensive standpoint. But I agree. I think that if we look back, and you can always hindsight's 20/20, but as you look back, I do think that when we do run the ball well and we are more balanced, our offense clicks much easier. And it's tough for an offensive lineman, a pass offensive lineman. It's tough when you're asked to block a guy that's more athletic than you probably, and over and over again, one-on-one, whether, most times pass blocks is you're double teaming, moving to a linebacker, so some co-op and some chip stuff. But one of the run plays I thought worked really well and has this whole year is the draw to Pender. It's worked out really well. And I know in Venice it worked out well. We did a couple times in the game as well. Is that something that really we haven't really seen before? Is that something we just have you all have added throughout the season, knowing there's some pressure being brought in the pass game?
Well, yeah, we added it recently. It's something I used to run heavy, back in my earlier coaching days, but added it recently. They just take advantage of those guys. They a lot of these teams we play spot drop. They see pass and they just fly out of there and don't really play the run. So anything to give our guys some space, and it's an easy install for the offensive lineman. They don't have to worry about muscling guys up front. It's just more of them selling that type of block, and the backs just use their instincts to find the hole.
So, obviously at the end of the game, we got a chance to win, or excuse me, to tie the game. We get the ball right about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes in the game, 3 timeouts left, and this is something that you learn as coaching, and happens. Were we trying to go? Because a lot of the question was, when do we use timeouts? And everybody's different. When do you use timeouts? When do you don't? I thought it was great. I thought up tempo was maybe trying to be had. You were trying to work up tempo. I just didn't know if it was right personnel or maybe there was something with play calling. But I thought that it looked like we were trying to go up tempo and just really couldn't get that communication in. And then we had to call the timeout.
We had a kid in there who didn't really know that particular play we was about to run. Because we had been rotating guys in and out. Keyshawn had went down with an injury, so we had a running back in there who didn't really know the play. And we had a receiver in there know the play because I think BJ had just ran a long route and he was tired. So we needed the timeout just to make sure we didn't screw it up at that point in the game. Because we play a lot of people at receiver, we play a lot of running backs,
sure.
So we try to make sure we didn't screw it up, and we try to make sure the guys stay fresh in the game. And at that point, we had a couple of guys win and had a couple of backups in the game, so we had to make sure they knew what was going on. And luck I called a timeout because I asked him did he know the play. He said no.
They did not.
He didn't know the play.
So it would have been worse if I wouldn't have. We drive pretty well. I think that you go back into the game and, that minute to 20 seconds is not what won or lost us the game. We lost that game the other 46 minutes, right? But, you go into that drive and really, and even the drive prior to that as well, I believe it was the series prior, just 2 big drops. I think Ramsey had one, unfortunately, on a 3rd down. That would have been a 1st down. We go for it on 4th and we don't get it. And then Bond had a drop that I believe was on 3rd down. And it's hard. It's hard. You're a former wide receiver, right?
They were big. They were big.
That
was a 1st down. If Rambo was called dead, that would have been a 1st down completion. We had the ball at probably 12, 14-yard line. If BJ was called in, we had 4 blockers on 2 guys over there. So with BJ type of talent he has, he might have scored with that. So it was big. We just, you got to have the guys that make those plays in that time in the ball game. Also, we ran a couple of 4 verticals, and if the guys get real deep, we got to have the wherewithal to check the ball down, let our backs run the football. Because as you can notice at the end of the game, all those guys were way back toward the end zone, and we still had like about 35, 40 seconds left in the game with timeouts. So,
right.
that's good learning for our kids. You know, it's something we can show them on film, and
Sure.
they understand that type of situation when we play again. And Andrews also will understand that what we mean by when we say check the ball down. You know, if the guys get all deep, just throw it to your guys short, let them run the football and get minutes he can.
Yeah. Well, in the broadcast, that's what I said. I said, wait, obviously they had 3 or 4 guys on the goal line. I said, but don't be surprised if we even had a route like a shallow or something like that to give a guy like Bond or Ramsey or Keyshawn or somebody or Gilly, give him the ball underneath and make him make a couple moves and maybe make a play and make it. We almost do, right?
Yeah.
A great job by Andrew running left. He ends up throwing it back across his body. I really can't believe it even got to Gilly, but he catches it and is a yard short. And unfortunately, time winds down and game ends. Now, obviously things to learn from. How did this week of practice bounce from? Now this is 2 weeks in a row, 2 games in a row. We had the bye week in between. Venice kind of get hit in the mouth. This one I felt like it was more what we didn't do than what they did, etc. How do we now bounce back to a big game, and how's practice gone this week?
The Riverview game was more so, like you said, what we didn't do well. It was kind of like last year or the year before last when we just didn't do well, and the other team, made just enough plays to win. We had a good week of practice last week, and I think we also had a good week of practice this week. So I think the kids will be excited to play Palmetto. This game really means something. It's for the district championship. It's for a first-round playoff game. It'll make us 7-2, which will surpass the amount of wins from last season. And it'll show the growth that those seniors have had since they've been here in the program.
Well, before we get going about Palmetto, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our sponsors. You're listening to In the Eye of the Hurricane. Welcome back to In the Eye of the Hurricane. I'm your host, Chad Choate, again alongside Coach Green. We're talking about the game this week, Coach, against the Palmetto Tigers. They come in the game 4-3. You mentioned it right before the break there. Big-time game, district opponent, the district championship. You win this. We're district champs and haven't been for quite a couple years now. You get a home field for the first round, guaranteed. Really sets us up probably in the second seed, even have a second if we continue to win in the playoffs, have a second game, at home as well. So, Palmetto playing a lot of similar opponents to us. They beat Sarasota. They beat Lakewood Ranch. They lost to Venice. They lost to Riverview, in the past recent weeks. And so a lot of be able to tell a little bit about, hey, we know this opponent because we've seen this, we've played them, and kind of compare the two. What have you all looked from your staff standpoint when you guys got together this weekend, looking at Palmetto and looking at the game plan? What are your thoughts about playing the Tigers this week?
They got a new staff over there this year. Offensively, more of a spread team now. They've been doing a good job of spreading the ball to run it. When they do decide to throw the football, they're trying to get the ball to number 2, Rockland Lodge. They still have a bunch of little fast, skilled guys that can make plays with the football in space. Defensively, they're a 4-3 defense. They play a mostly cover 3, but they will play some cover 4 and try to keep the football in front of them. Defensively, they've been hit with an injury bug in the secondary, so they've been shuffling guys in and out in the secondary. And offensively, they've really been running the ball well for a team that's a spread offense. They got some guys that if you don't get fit the holes right, they can squirt up out of there and make big plays. So we have to stop the run, make those guys one-dimensional. We know those guys, our kids will be excited. They know any of these teams very well, or the players on the team very well. They know these Palmetto kids. A lot of them grew up together. Yeah. A lot of them played youth league together, went to middle school together. We actually got a few of them living in the same house on the team. So it'll be a big game. We just got to keep the kids even keeled, make sure they're focused and don't get too exuberant during the game and do anything to kill hurt the team.
Well, that's the first thing before we get into some specifics about Palmetto and how we match up. The one thing too is the emotion of it, right? You mentioned that a lot of these guys know each other really well. They went to elementary school, middle school, played youth ball, etc. Grew up in the same neighborhoods, etc. How do you, and not only that, It's for the district championship. We haven't beaten them in several years. We haven't beaten them there in 3 tries. How do you, as a coach, how do we emotionally? It's going to be an emotional game. We saw a little bit of our emotions flare up at Venice. How do we bottle that up and put it in the right spot? Right? How does a coach? How do we try to get our players to make sure that we're using that energy and that passion and this drive they're going to have to win this game in the positive direction, which is to go make plays?
Well, I think from the Venice game, they understand that one crazy decision can, erase your whole rest of your season. You can be suspended. You can do something to hurt your team. We saw 1 or 2 guys that flare up at the Venice game, but most people didn't see the other 7 or 8 guys that held their composure and didn't do anything crazy. So it'll be exciting for the kids. It's always an exciting game. That was a fun game. We play each other. I've enjoyed each time we played Palmetto. When I've been here, it's been real good ball games. No matter what the record, the games when we beat them has been close. The games they've beaten us has always been close. So I'm looking forward to it, and our kids are looking forward to it also.
Yeah. So talking about a little bit about their offense, let's jump into obviously their quarterback transfers over from Lakewood Ranch from last year, Clayton Dees. He's thrown a little over 1,000 yards, 1,026, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 140 rushing yards. Really has only played about 4 games-ish, right? I believe he missed a couple in the beginning, maybe 4 or 5 games. Missed a couple with his knee, wearing a knee brace. I don't feel like comparing him from last year, a different school, different guys. I get it. Mm-hmm. But I felt like at Lakewood Ranch, he just felt more comfortable. He felt more comfortable in the system. And maybe that's because you're with different guys, 3 years, and it's comfortable. I just feel like he felt like he was in his space and kind of did some stuff passing the ball at Lakewood Ranch just a little bit better than what he's doing now. And maybe it's because also he got hurt in the beginning of the year, only 4 or 5 games in. But what do you see from him and the passing offense that they had? They opened up in some empty against Venice. So what are some of the things that we've got to make sure with playing against a Dees Clayton like this, and he's going to FIU. I think he's the FIU commit. What are some of the things we got to do on offense, or on defense, to stop them on offense?
I also think that the competition is different. Over at Lakewood Ranch, they only played us in Palmetto. That was
because they had to, right?
Upper echelon team. Yeah. So I think we have to get after him. He got a knee brace, so it means he's had a previous injury, which means he probably hurt it during the game. So we got to shut down the run first. Once we shut down the run, we got to get after the quarterback, move him off his spot, make him move around back there. Helps us out a little bit because he's not as good as he don't scramble as much as he did years in the past. He still has a good arm. He's still good enough to be able to sit in the pocket and just throw darts if he has to. So I think we have to bring pressure up the gut and make him move off his spot.
Well, I do think that they're pretty balanced yard wise at least. Devon Thomas, number 7. Their leading rusher, 733 yards, 11 touchdowns on the season. He's one of those guys you talked about, just kind of a athletic, can be explosive at times as well. You look at their Venice game, he takes that, I think it was a screen maybe in their second drive, takes it almost to the house and score a draw, takes almost to the house and scores. We know Venice is good. And so he's one of those guys that at any point can take one to the house. How do you combat that defensively? How do we make sure guys stay in front of us like that?
Well, we rep that play a good bit. We've been doing a pretty good job this year, staying home backside, not giving up boots and reverses and counters and what have you. So we started on film against Venice. He cut it back and was out of there. But Palmetto has a lot of kids like that, man. You get those guys space, they can get up out of there. Number 1, Wester is an explosive kid. I think Madwood is number 9. So they have a bunch of explosive, little short, fast guys, similar to the receivers we have.
So, going to one formation that I think is one that many different times many different thoughts on how do you defend it, but is the empty, right? Empty backfield, quarterback's by himself, 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers, however they want to go. And Coach Marino did this as well at Palmetto. He would go, but a lot of times he motioned back into it. The thought process of that is you immediately think, oh, it's going to be pass, right? So we got to have our DBs ready to go. But sometimes that's spreading out to let the quarterback have some lanes and have some areas to run. So I don't want to get into game plans and know what's going on and get that out there, although they won't see this till Friday morning. But, is that how do you juggle both, right? How do you juggle, hey, they got 5 threats on the perimeter. We've got to be able to stop those threats, especially probably deep is your biggest worry. Short stuff, you can get up and rally and kind of tackle. But at the same time, you do have an athletic quarterback, and we don't want to be spread too thin and have the middle wide open for him to run. How do you combat that, and maybe what is something that Coach Beatty and the defensive staff are thinking about?
I think against empty, you got to have 3 ways to play. I think you got to have a way to pressure it all out. You got to have a way to zone pressure, and you got to have a way to play just safe coverage against it. For me, if I was a defense coordinator, I would blitz the heck out the quarterback. I'd try to kill the quarterback,
Amen.
so to speak, so they won't be even comfortable doing it anymore, and they'll have second thoughts about doing it. I'll always make sure I bring 6 so I know we have a free run on the quarterback. And nobody wants to get the quarterback hit, so most times if you start getting pressure on the guy who's in empty, they'll have second thoughts about getting it empty and leave a running back in the backfield. But we play it a couple of different ways. We mostly play it with split field coverages. We'll play trip side one way, and we'll play the twin side one way so we can keep a linebacker in the box. I also think you have to stunt your line so they can't just quarterback draw you in the ground.
So a lot of Tim and Tom that do some twists.
You have to be able to stunt your front a lot so they can't just run quarterback draws. And we know on film, based on film, a lot of times they get an empty, they'll shift the empty and they run the quarterback draws. So Tez will be in there. I think he'll do a good job of seeing what's going on and make the play.
Yeah, I always like, when being coaching, I always love to be able to show something but having multiple ways to do it. So when you blitz someone, you're showing blitz, but you're backing out of it. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, sometimes we're going to go with it. And I think just trying to confuse, especially the offensive line, as much as possible, right?
Yep.
And that's try to get as much pressure because, especially when you go into empty, you're going to have a lot of one-on-one matchups up front. And it could be 5-on-5. If you're blitzing somebody and you got 5 guys, the defender's going, somebody's got to win their one-on-one matchup on the defensive side and go make a play. Let's talk about their defense, Palmetto's defense. They had a really good run there of really good interior guys, D linemen, linebackers, Westers down at FAU. The linemen they had went to UCF. They had I think that they're just and it's cyclical, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
And I think they're a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit thinner in that front 7. Still some really good athletes up there, Zach Samuels Jr., etc. And so, you said they run a 4-3, had some injuries on the back end. What are some things that we're looking for this week against the Tigers from an offensive standpoint, things you feel like we should be able to do against them?
They're solid up front. I think they do a good job of getting off using their hands. They don't have the big kids like they've had in years past. They had the 280s and 270s up top. They play hard on the second level. The linebacker Caleb, I can't remember his last name, number 43. He's probably the most active guy in their defense.
Palomalu Palomalu.
They bring a lot of pressure with him. He's a physical kid. He put together real well. So I think the strength of their team is probably a front 4, the way they play with their head and hands and keep containment.
So, this late in the season, we're down to game 9. 10 will be next week, and we had our bye week. And as we end the season and hopefully make a run, into the playoffs, does anything change from a staff perspective, from practice times, practice schedules that, hey, we're gearing towards, because we played 8 weeks, we had the break, and I know that changed. You gave Monday and Friday off, but you always think about, do you change anything as you get later on in the season, shorten things up, because we don't want kids, energy-wise and injury-wise, things like that. I mean, does that ever come? I know as a coach, I always thought about, we're late in the season here. Do we need to change and tweak anything? It's not like it's week 1 where we're still trying to get, but we're always trying to get better. Mm-hmm. But we're not trying to learn our stuff. Yeah. We're past that. Any kind of thought like that process happens during this late?
We do a little bit more indie periods and just fundamental periods so the kids, stay on top of fundamentals, because I don't never want to be like, let's get back to fundamentals. Like, first of all, like, why you got away from fundamentals?
Right,
so
right.
I want to make sure we stay on top of fundamentals. Even simple stuff is quarterback run polish. Making sure we stay on top of that kind of stuff. We never on the field like a crazy amount of time, and that's something I always said I would do once I become a head coach. I never believed in being at 3 or 4 hours because kids just can't focus that long these days. So I'm sure when the time goes back and we'll play it by how much light out there, I'm sure we'll cut back on some things around that time and try to keep the guys fresh. I've been on teams where the kids will just wore out when the playoffs just start.
Right.
And they really go play basketball now.
Right.
So I want the kids to make sure they enjoy it and still have some left in the tank for the playoffs.
I think we've talked about this in prior podcasts and streams that, starting fast and making sure we start well. And, we did, right? I mean, this past week we did defensively stop them. Offensively, we get it. We drive down. We obviously just don't score and capitalize. Was there anything that you changed? And I go back to, obviously, we're both Gators. And I mean, you're a legend. I'm just a fan. But Coach Napier was asked a couple weeks ago, hey, you haven't won on the road. You're having road woes. What are you going to change? And they changed some things, leaving on Wednesday and going to the stadium earlier than. So they changed some things against South Carolina. Obviously, come out with a win. Was there anything that you changed, or did we just things happen for us, and just clicked?
I'm not even sure. I know we got these guys played over there when they was younger players. They was 10th graders. I think it's just a matter of who make plays, man. When you get on that field, it's who make the plays. I don't believe in much superstition or doing something a certain way. I think kids perform better when they're used to a routine or the same way of doing something over and over. I think they kind of freak out when you start changing stuff around and not doing this. And I've had kids like, Coach, why are we not doing this anymore?
Right.
Why are we not doing that anymore? So I think kids like routine. I think kids work better with knowing their schedule is routine and knowing what we're doing, each and every step of the day.
Well, I tell folks all the time, it's, if you start changing stuff and it's worked and you have a couple games, obviously, where we've lost and done. Now you start changing stuff, the kids pick up on that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wait a minute, whoa. Why are you panicking? Why are you changing this? And then now they start thinking in their head something's wrong. And it's not. It's just some of the fundamentals, some of the catches, right? Yeah. Couple missed blocks, couple missed tackles that really change the whole course of the game. You don't need to do anything extra crazy. So good. Listen, we're super excited. At the end of the day, you want to win them all, but you definitely want to win two. And that was Lakewood Ranch against Palmetto, right?
Yes.
If we can be 2-8, be district champs. Hey, that's one accomplishment because you want to be district champs. You can't host first round game and be district champs until you beat the last district champ, which is Palmetto. And, we haven't beat them 3 times since we've been over there. Danny Carr and I were talking about this morning. Surprise stat to me, it's been 3 years. Remember, we had that real rain, nasty games.
Had 2 of them.
Nasty.
Back-to-back years.
And so, love to get a clean track. Should be good. Their turf, same turf we're on. They got the same turf that we have. So it's going to be really exciting. So, Coach, good luck to you Friday. We're really excited for you. Everybody out there, the game is at 7 o'clock at Palmetto High School. Make sure you're there for the kickoff, not 7:30, 7 o'clock. Join us next week as we recap the game against Palmetto Tigers, and we look forward to senior night against the Southeast Seminoles. As always, go Canes, go.